Hello and welcome back to part 32 of my journey towards my Bachelor's of Science Information Technology degree from Western Governors University. Today's video is my top 5 tips for passing classes quickly. Okay, so first of all, a disclaimer. These tips today are not for everybody. Everybody learns in a different style, but these tips are targeted at people that are trying to pass classes quickly and to expedite the completion of their degree program. So for those that have been watching my video series will know that I was able to complete my degree in 7 months and 8 days. Now, I would like to point out that wasn't a full degree. I was able to transfer 11 credit units or 3 classes in at the start. So that 7 months, 8 days might have been a bit longer if I had to have completed those other 3 classes as part of my degree program. So, but it gives you an idea of where we are. Now, I believe my time is not that unusual, but it is probably above average. So hopefully these tips will be helpful. And these are the things that I found were the most useful for me completing my degree as quickly as I did. So before we get to the tips, let me just give you a little bit of information about Western Governors University as a school. First of all, Western Governors University is a fully accredited university. It's the competency-based learning model that is the big difference. And what that means for those who don't know is competency-based means if you already know something about the subject, say for example, you've been doing it with your job already and you feel like you don't need to study for it, you can basically what I call test out of that particular class, which simply means you can just do the pre-assessment, qualify to take the objective assessment, which is the final, and then basically take it. And if you pass, you're done. So tip number 1 is very straightforward, and that is go ahead and take the pre-assessment exam as soon as possible. For those who don't know, the pre-assessment is basically a test that you can take that will gauge your understanding of that particular class. Once you've completed, it will provide you with a coaching report, and that coaching report will break down the different sections of the material and give you an overview of how well you've done. Now, clearly, if you've done excellent in all the different areas, then that's a great sign that you can probably go ahead and take the objective exam and what I call test out of this particular class. The bottom line here is why study stuff that you already know? So you've proven it with the testing, the pre-assessment. Now you're ready to take the final. Now, say, for example, you didn't do quite so well. The good thing about the coaching report is it will identify those areas. Again, why do all the material when you did well, say in 3 of the 5 areas, say there's 5 areas in a test. In this situation, you can simply just focus on those areas that are identified, study those, take the pre-assessment again, and then once you're pretty much confident and strong across all the areas, then you're ready to move on. Ultimately, the pre-assessment is a very good tool to limit what you have to study. Only focus on those areas that have been identified in the report as a weakness. So the second tip I can give you is make sure you review the end of chapter tests and the material that's often there. So for those who don't know, as you're working your way through the class, it's often broken into different chapters, and there will be an online textbook for you. Now, when you do the pre-assessment, for example, if there's an area that you need to work on, it'll often highlight that particular chapter. So the end of review section of these chapters is very useful because basically it's a summarization of what you've just learned. So, for example, you don't have time to read every single page in that chapter. This review is really useful. So there's a way to test yourself. Often it's like a multiple choice test. Often there's key like terms. Sometimes there's acronyms. Sometimes there's just some basic notes. What I'm saying is if there's areas that you need to study fast, definitely make sure you read over the end of chapter information. This is also a great place where you could take that information to create your own Quizlets, for example, if you want to make flashcards. So the next tip I can give you is simple, and that is don't get hung up on your final score. A pass is a pass. So Western Governors University is not like a traditional school where you're going to get an A or B or C, some kind of grade like that. They have simple pass or fail criteria. So when you take the objective assessment or final assessment, as I like to call it, you're going to get a score report, and it's basically going to show you how well you did. Now, there'll be a bar graph, and basically you'll see a line, which is the pass mark, and then they'll show you where you scored compared to that pass line. Now, clearly, if you've scored all the way over to the other side, looks like you got 100%, that's awesome. That means you're exemplary, you know almost everything about the material. But the bottom line is somebody who's just barely passed the line scored the same. It's still a pass is a pass. So from reading the material that's provided in the student handbook, basically it's kind of a B level to pass this particular program. You don't have to get A's. This isn't Harvard. It is a degree program. It is an accredited degree program. But the bottom line is keep that in mind. If you're looking to basically learn every single morsel of detail, this is probably the wrong video for you, because I'm trying to help you pass quickly if that's what you're looking to do. So like I said, it took me a little while to get this into my own mindset, because the truth is often I would come back into the room after I'd taken objective assessment. I'd see my score report and I felt like I'd done better, and I was kind of disappointed, but I'd passed. And my wife would say to me, well, what do you care? You still passed. And I guess it just took me a little while to get into that mindset. So I would strongly encourage you to do that as soon as possible. That way you can move through these classes as quickly as you can. So tip 4 is be prepared to fail a few objective assessments, especially if you're trying to do this quickly. Now, the reason I say that is because it's almost impossible, I think, to do this at speed without failing at least one class. Now, in my scenario, I didn't fail one until maybe 10 or 11 classes in. And when I finally did fail one, I was gutted, because I was, just it's human nature to be disappointed if you don't pass an exam. All I can say is just shake it off, go again. It does happen. Now, I spoke to my mentor after I failed, and she said to me, everybody fails, so it is rare. So don't feel like, oh my God, I'm a failure because you fail one. If you're doing this quickly and you're trying to pass these fast, you're going to have to take some gambles. And there might be some times when you feel like you're ready, but you're not 100% sure. You're doing well on the pre-assessment, but you're kind of on the fence. Then sometimes you just got to roll the dice, because you might surprise yourself. You might pass the objective assessment and then you're done. And then sometimes you might fail and you might have to just go back and refocus on an area. My point is sometimes you're going to have to roll the dice and try and see where you are. Now, there is limits on the maximum retakes you can take. So I would not go crazy and just take tests that you have no idea, or, like basically no knowledge of, because you are going to fail and you're going to run out of attempts. Now, my understanding is you get up to 4 attempts per lesson. So the first 1 or 2, maybe you can gamble a little bit. But once you get to 3 and 4, I would not be gambling at that point. I'd be taking it very, very serious and making sure I knew the material 100%. Because once you get to 4, I think there isn't a appeals process, but potentially you might have to change your degree plan if you can't complete that class, and that's pretty scary. The other thing as well here is I think attempts 3 and 4, there is a cost for it. So attempts 1 and 2 are free as part of your tuition. I think attempt 3 and 4 might be $65. I'll go ahead and put that in the description here if I can find it in the student handbook. So my 5th and final tip is very straightforward, but it needs to be emphasized. And that is commit the time to this degree. If you want to do this quickly, it's all about time and the hours you put in. You're not going to be able to do this bits and pieces quickly if you're only studying a couple of hours a week. So another tip I'll give you is when you do study, try and study for an extended period of time. If you're only doing 20 minutes here, an hour there, and you're 2 hours on a Tuesday and 2 hours on a Friday and a half an hour on a Sunday, yeah, you might be somewhat learning the material, but you're leaving too big a gaps. I think the best way to pass classes quickly in this particular scenario is to put in bulk hours. So for example, for me, Saturday was a big learning day for me. I would do as much as I could during the week, after work, before work, lunchtime, etc. But Saturday, I'd specifically get up, I'd have breakfast, I'd put a pot of coffee on, and then I'd go to my office and I'd be there pretty much all day, sometimes until the early hours in the morning. I was really committed to putting those hours in. Often I would take the objective assessment that Saturday evening, sometimes early hours. I guess that's why I called the night hours, or sometimes Sunday morning. But the point is that was basically how I was able to complete about a class a week for the most part. I was studying for long periods, making sure it's fresh in my mind, and then taking the objective assessment. That for me is a big deal. The other big tip I can give you about time is try not to mix the classes up too much. So what I mean by that is if you're studying 3 or 4 different classes at the same time, depends what kind of multitasker you are, but that I found that difficult. So once I kind of just got into the habit of just, I'm going to do this class and I'm going to do it until I complete it, then I'm going to move on to the next one and so forth. That really helped me. So if you're that type of person, definitely focus one class at a time, and then you just churn them out. So that was my top 5 tips for passing classes quickly. I really hope you found it helpful. I don't think I've said anything new there particularly or reinvented the wheel, as you might say, but hopefully I've just tried to give you some clarity. Now, the truth is, this type of learning isn't for everybody. If you are not a very organized person or you're a bit of a scatterbrain at times and you need structure and you need to be able to go into a classroom and you need somebody to tell you what to do, then Western Government University isn't necessary for you. This is all about independent learning. It's about finding the time. It's about self-management. It's about basically controlling your own destiny. If you can do all those things well and you're a very disciplined kind of person, then absolutely you can knock these degrees out very quickly. The other huge advantage, of course, is the competency-based learning. If you have any kind of knowledge in the different areas, then you are able to test and out very quickly and hopefully knock off a lot of these classes. And that's what I was able to do. Out of the 36 classes or so in this particular degree program, I had a pretty good knowledge of maybe 20 to 25 of them. So I was able to do quite a lot of them quickly. Now, there was obviously some other classes I didn't know so much about, and I had to really focus on that material. But for the most part, that was the reason I was able to complete this class or this degree program as quickly as I did. Well, that's all I have for today. I hope you're well. Look out for a new video very soon. Take care, and I'll speak to you all soon.